Welcome to everybody to this webinar. I think the slide that we are showing today, this morning, first is a support fund that we have created for plumbers that are in distress in the KZN area, where we obviously know there's a lot of floods and a lot of damage. Unfortunately, one of our plumbers down there has lost his house and his children, and I'm sure there are other guys in our industry that is in distress. So if you do have the funds available, or if there's any possibility, please contribute to this fund so that we can support these guys and help them. Steve, you got something from your side as well?
Yeah, morning, everyone. Yeah, I think some tough times down here in KZN. I think we all, in one way or another, impacted with no water or electricity. But I think there are others out there that are in a worse situation than we are. So again, just to support this in terms of the initiative, to try and assist and guide those that are really struggling. So thank you.
Right, so we're going to move on. I'll show you the next slide, if I can just get to the button. Just a reminder of our Plumbing Industry Awards evening that is to be held on the 28th of July at the Royal Elephant Hotel in Centurion. Please, guys, if you can support this, I think it will be a fantastic evening to attend, where members of our industry will be awarded for their contributions. And if you need any information regarding booking and all of these things, please contact Kayla on marketing@opsa.org. Steve, anything from you regarding this?
All good, Kerry.
Right, so let's get into our presentation for this morning. And we're going to look at non-compliance notification and the site assessment that needs to be done. And first of all, I think let's have a look at the contents. Where does it come from? What are we talking about? And I can hear in the background, in the back of my head, a couple of sighs where people are saying, not again. So let me put your mind at ease. This is not the normal thing that we are talking about. However, it's all connected. So we will look at the legislation, the SANS codes, which non-compliances are we talking about? What is the purpose of a non-compliance notice, the site assessment, and then also the benefits to the plumber when doing a non-compliance. So first of all, we're going to look at legislation, and all of this starts with the Water Services Act 1997, as amended on the 8th of June 2001. And in that Water Services Act, which is obviously the law, it says that every consumer installation must comply with SANS 10252, which is water supply and drainage for buildings, and then 10254, which is the installation for electrical storage water heating systems. Now, just to take a step back, when we look at 10252, it's two parts. Part one is the water supply, in other words, water supply from the main supply to the house, and part two is the drainage for buildings. In the same act, in clause 16, it says the reporting of non-compliance. A water services institution, which mostly translates into municipalities or local authority, must have a consumer service to which non-compliance with these regulations can be reported. In other words, if there's non-compliances in terms of 10252 or 254, it needs to be reported. So stemming from that, if we look at our SANS codes, I think the most popular one that everybody is aware of, SANS 10254, which is electrical geyser installations. It says that the water heater and its ancillary components shall be maintained and replaced or repaired to comply with this standard, and any non-compliance shall be reported to the owner and user in writing by the person who carries out the maintenance, replacement, or repair. Then if we go further to the solar installation, SANS 10106, also says any non-compliance to this standard and SANS 10254 of the installed water heater shall be reported by the person who carries out the maintenance, repair, or upgrade to the owner or user in writing. And the same applies with SANS 1352, which is heat pump installation. So all of these regulations tell us that we need to inform the owner in writing of any non-compliances. So let's move on and let's have a look. Which non-compliances are we talking about? We are talking about pre-existing non-compliances. In other words, when you arrive on site, not after you've done the installation. Say if there's anything that you can see or that you observe that is non-compliant on the installation that you need to work on, as well as other parts of the plumbing installation, those are the non-compliances we are talking about. No non-compliance notification on new builds or alterations or additions. In other words, what it comes down to is that you cannot install a non-compliance and then issue a non-compliance notice. So please, guys, we hear this from time to time where a person has done an installation and then afterwards he wants to issue a non-compliance certificate. It does not work that way. Steve, anything from your side?
Yeah, Gerrie, I think, from what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, and the reason for us having this discussion this morning is, again, we've had the plumber, for example, coming out from the insurance sector. It's a, we like that word, like for like replacement. And what we found is that some of the consumers are not getting the COC or the non-compliance notice until 7 days later. And then they come back and say, well, had I known about this before, then we would have paid to upgrade it. Now I want the plumber to come back and do it at his cost because he didn't advise me before. So I think the clear thing for us is to just ensure that where there is those pre-existing non-compliances or where there's challenges with regards to getting a TP out or trying to get it safe, is that we need to have that communication, because from what I've seen in the last couple of weeks, more and more the plumber's been put in a bit of a precarious position because he's done what he should have done by notifying the client, but it's after the fact and not before. And I know it's a challenge. You're on site, there's nobody there. How do you do it? But again, we've got to just try and find ways in which to, to alleviate the issues that we have, even after an audit, as an example, when the audit's done and the client is sort of not there, and they start asking the questions, what if there's somebody on site. So I think we just need to try and knuckle down a little bit. I know we do a lot of training in terms of what we've done with the installers training. It's just trying to create that awareness of covering those items that are pre-existing, and I think that's the key thing for us.
Thanks, Steve. While we talking, I see there was a question coming up from William. What about when a client is very clever and he wants you to do it his way? Can you then give him a non-compliance note? Steve, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I think we got to remember, who's the professional, yourself or the client. And I've had clients like that before, where they'll come up and tell you, well, you will do it this way or my way. And to be quite honest, I cover myself. I'll say, well, look, I've advised the consumer that what they actually having me install or doing is non-compliant, and I note that on my my invoice. Again, I'm not doing plumbing now, but I would basically put it on the invoice, advise the consumer, and tell them that maybe the warranty is now void or whatever. But I think it's one of those key things that we need to just realize and communicate a little bit better. But if they're saying they want A and you're saying it won't work, then you just note that and say, well, look, you're following the instruction of the client against your will, type of thing, and off you go. Or, as Maurice would say, pack your toolbox and off you go. You don't want to be associated with a job like that. But it is difficult when we're looking for the work, and sometimes they've got to come back and say, okay, Mr. Plumber, you were right, please fix it. But yeah, that would be my answer.
And I think from my side, Steve, looking back at what we've just dealt with, it is what the legislation says. So the installation need to comply to the standard. And 9 times out of 10, the client is looking at aesthetics and not necessarily something that's going to work and it's going to be a safe installation. So my short answer will always be, we need to work, or we need to do the installation for your own benefit and for your safety in accordance with the standard that is written. So, I mean, you know, you can't really argue with something that's black on white.
I think, Kerry, what we're talking about is, you know, non-critical items, you know, where the plumber's been told, you know, they're told that they have to put the geyser here, they have to do that or whatever. And, you know, you can't get the pipe out. I mean, you know, if it's going to be critical and it's going to be unsafe, certainly not. But, you know, you do get some things where the guy will go, well, I want polycop on the wall, or I want a composite pipe on the wall. And you're saying, well, look, you know, it can't go there because of A, B, and C, and they say, well, I want it. And that's where you cover yourself. So we're not talking about critical areas or critical things that are going to put anybody at unsafe. But, you know, you do have it where pipes have been stolen on numerous occasions, and the client comes back and says, I'm not going through this again. So please just put a composite pipe there that's got no value. So, you know, things like that where you can actually have a look at it and just denote it.
Right. So what are the obligations or the responsibilities? What we need to keep in mind is, if we go back to the Water Services Act, that is appointed at the owner or the user of that system. So the owner is the person that is responsible to ensure that his installation is compliant. In other words, it's being maintained according to the legislation, the bylaws, and the regulations. But also on the plumber or the installer, as you said earlier, Steve, is that your responsibility as a plumber, as a professional person, is to inform the owner of a pre-existing non-compliance. So you don't have an obligation to fix it. Your obligation stops with informing the owner of the existing non-compliances and obviously problems that can be created. So let's have a look. What's the purpose? The purpose of all of this is to protect the consumer from potential dangers and underperformance that may result from non-compliance installations. And the second side of this purpose is to indemnify the plumber or the installer against any future claim caused by failures of pre-existing non-compliance items, such as injuries, damage to property, or warranties that are being voided. So those, I think, to me, is the two main reasons why we do this and why we looking at non-compliance notification. So let's look at a site assessment. And once again, coming back to what Steve said earlier, we have in the last couple of weeks, we had numerous calls about this. And, you know, we tend to all look at the geyser installation because it's very prominent, and it's, as we know, all a very dangerous installation, or it can become a dangerous installation, but it doesn't stop there. So we're looking at geyser installations, solar geyser installations, heat pumps, hot and cold water supply, sanitary ware, above ground drainage, below ground drainage, rainwater disposal, stormwater system. So, you know, don't limit yourself only to the installation that you are going to do. Also look around and look at other things. And you will later on, you will see why we say look at other parts of the installation, because in the end, you are the professional person, and if you identify stuff that is not compliant, then although it's only an obligation in terms of the SANS codes quoted, in other words, 10254, 10.10.6, and 1352, I think it would be a good idea for you to also expand yourself, and it will be beneficial to yourself in the long run. So let's have a look and see. Here's a couple of examples of other non-compliances other than a geyser. We look at the left-hand top corner there. Look at where those discharge pipes are being connected. There we've got a 90-degree bend, and we've got a little shower trap that was, what can we say, built in here to try and discharge, which is totally incorrect. Right next to that, we've got a little galvanized clamp, pipe to a copper pipe, which will obviously cause this pipe to corrode over time, causing issues. The one next to that, to the right, 90-degree bends on the expansion discharge pipe. Gullies. I mean, look at this gully that has been put together. It's not really a gully. It's something that somebody has built to try and do things, but you can see the obvious problems that you're going to have there. This gully is level with the ground level, so you're going to have stormwater, rainwater entering there. So there's a numerous things there. At the bottom left, the TP discharging into the drainage system. Now you can only imagine if all of that is PVC, what's going to happen if that super hot water is being discharged into that system. And there we've got a little gutter from the rain system also discharging into the system. So guys, don't limit yourselves only to geyser installations. You can see there, here's just a couple of pictures, and I can tell you there are volumes of these things. Water meter installations. Once again, some of that gully that we saw at the top there, level with the ground level. Look at this venting pipe here. So there, I can tell you my opinion, I don't think there's a lot of installations, if we look at the big picture, that are 100% compliant. So you must use this to your benefit. So look for the non-compliances. Take photos. You know, that's one of the things that I tell the guys. Before you touch the installation, stand back for 5 minutes. Observe what is in front of you. Take photos of your installation before you start. And then one of the biggest and most important points here is to notify the owner at this point in time of non-compliances. As Steve said earlier, it's no use to notify the compliant, the owner or the occupant a week later. You will get the situation where this guy is obviously going to get uptight and say, but you know, if you guys notified me of this on site while you were there, I might have asked you to do this and paid you to do that. So be careful not to fall into this trap where we carry on, we do the work because we are under pressure, and then later on there's a problem. So I think this is one of the most important points, is to notify the owner immediately before you even start. You know, if we, sorry, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to add, as an example, I think, you know, Brendan was talking about case studies the other day. So Lorraine, you know, again, one of our compliance auditors, we had an issue, obviously an IOPSA member, and the geyser had been replaced, and the certificate of compliance and the non-compliance notice was issued about sort of 7 to 8 days later, but there was no donation of polycop pipe in the ceiling. So after the plumber had completed the job, there was a slight leak. You went back, you did the repair, came back again, and well, it was about a week later, this polycop pipe just burst and caused extensive damage. And unfortunately for the plumber, you know, he hadn't submitted the non-compliance, hadn't communicated the non-compliance to the consumer. And this became an issue because obviously the requirements of the COC and the non-compliance notice needs to be done up front, and obviously, you know, covered in terms of the COC. And unfortunately, it was a situation where, you know, obviously his insurance kicked in. But, you know, we all don't want that stress and pain and suffering when it comes to, you know, something that should have been done right at the get-go. So I think the key thing is to make sure that you do that as you're following it there, Gerrie, is that, you know, we know that clients are busy and we know that, you know, trying to get hold of them. So I think sometimes it's just also that communication, you know, from the get-go. I've said the insurance companies should be advising the consumers that, you know, the plumber that's being sent out has got an SLA and he will cover certain items, but there may be items that may be for the client's account. So, you know, the plumber will advise them. And I think it's trying to open up that level of communication so that the client is aware of it, because most of them think that the plumber's coming out and he's going to make everything okay, which is certainly not the case.
So guys, you know, once again, if I can take one step back, if you really know your SANS codes, then I cannot see why you walk away from installations. I have often been, how can I put this, you know, been asked a question. So you were supposed to go and do this thing. Why are you talking about the drainage system and the rainwater and all of these things? But I think if you're a professional person and you take pride in what you do, you cannot walk past these things and ignore them. There are so many things that we can look at. I mean, we've had a look at the gully earlier. The vent, is there an open vent at the head of the drain? Rotting ice. You know, how many times have you seen, or you're trying to open or trying to clean a drain, and you can't even find the rotting ice. You don't know whether there are any there. So all of these things, it sounds really simple, but if you really go and you have a look, and while you're there, it's going to take you 5 or 10 minutes just to walk around to make sure, are the waste straps on the waste fittings, are they installed correctly? Is the water seals, you know, working the way it should? Concertina pan connectors. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's very prominent nowadays, the easy fix thing. The anchoring of the pan and the cistern, anchoring of basins, the inspection chamber on the bath. You know, there's a whole list of these things, and you really go sit down and you make yourself just a small checklist. Just have a look at a couple of these things, and I can tell you guys, you will stand back and realize that in most instances, there is something that is non-compliant in some way in this plumbing installation. And I think that's the important part that I want to bring home to you. It's not only about the geyser, it's about the rest of the installation as well. Being a professional person, I think one should look at these things. Let's carry on. So notification of to the owner or the occupant, issue the non-compliance notice, conduct the repair, the installation or the maintenance. Once again, take photos afterwards. And guys, this photo thing sounds like a stupid idea, but let me tell you, you take photos before the time, you take photos after, you ensure that you've got proof of what you have found and what state that you leave that installation in, so that you don't have, and we find this often, where unqualified people are being employed afterwards to come and do a couple of things. They fiddle with your installation. In the end, that guy is not going to find that unqualified person again. If something goes wrong, he's going to come back to you. You know, this thing, Steve, is one of your popular sayings, is this, since you were here, we had this problem. So yeah, once again, cover yourself, make sure that you list everything and that you take the photographs, which is your evidence. Steve, you want to add something onto that?
Yeah, I think you know, Kitty, I agree with you, you know, in terms of that. And I think also within reason, you know, we also have clients that, you know, I've had it once where I was out the back of the house going to go and have a look and see where the overflows were, and the client wants to know what the hell I'm doing out the back when the geezer's in the roof. So I think it's again, it's a level of communication, you know, in terms of how you communicate with your client. You know, if you're professional in the way that you are, you know, going back years ago, you know, if we were doing a toilet or we were doing a block drain or something, you know, when the standards first came out with regards to inspection and compliance to geysers, you know, we turn around and say, look, you know, while we're here and the guys are cleaning up, you know, okay, would you mind if we went to just go and check and see if your geyser was okay? and a large majority of the clients were quite happy. So again, it just goes back to, you know, the training. It goes back to, you know, how serious you are in terms of being that professional, and then uplifting staff. I think the key thing is, and it's sometimes a hindrance, I've had it, we've all had it, is where, how do we get that level of the installer or the plumber that's there? We all know some plumbers, you know, communication in terms of understanding standards is not there, but it's something that we can work on. And I think if we all work as a team, you know, to do that. As I've said before, I follow a chap in America, and you know, again, they talk about the same thing, you know, about, yes, the client has a problem, but, you know, they also have other problems that they're not aware of, you know. So again, you know, preemptive maintenance, if you want to call it that, rather than crisis management. And I think that's the key thing, is to just make the client aware of it. They can then make an informed decision whether they want to or don't want to do the repair, but at least you've put it out there. And again, you can say, look, if you want me to give you a quote on it, I can certainly do that. And, you know, we can do it next month, or we're in your area next week or whatever, let us know. But I think that, you know, all industries do that from a sales perspective, that every single one that is there in terms of the trades, they do that. And it's something that from a plumbing perspective, there are some companies that do it and do it very well. And I think there are others that, just focus with blinkers on. I'm here to fix the geyser or the valve or whatever it is, and I'm out of here. So maybe it's just to take a couple of minutes and assess. That's really what it is.
Thanks, Steve. I want to just keep you on the line. There's a question that came in, and it says from Lincoln. It says, morning, is plastron allowed in the ceiling? So, yeah. Steve, do you want to take that one?
Again, we go, all different pipes. Remember, it talks about, composite pipes and plastic pipes not being outside direct sunlight. I think plastron is one of those that we see often. In terms of the ceiling spaces, I don't have the standards right in front of me now to go back in and do it. But I think, if we go and apply that, and I've seen it, if it's supported correctly and it's done in the correct manner and it's anchored, no problem. But I think also we've got to go and have a look at in terms of the type of pipe. Is it okay for hot water? What can it take, et cetera, et cetera. But certainly we can get that info and send it through. If we just pop Harry an email, we'll work on that and get it through.
Yeah, so I think if I can connect to that.
The class of pipe, the class of pipe, bearing in mind there's some classes of pipe. So a little bit of an ambiguous question, but if we're talking about it in that manner and how it gets done, etc.
Yeah, Steve, thanks. And I think also to connect to what you're saying is what you need to keep in mind is that in terms of the standards, all of these standards say that we need to fit a component or a fitting or a material that is fit for purpose. In other words, is it going to do the job? Is it going to withstand the temperatures, the pressures, everything? And then obviously, is it an approved product? And I think that to me is the important part. But yes, we can certainly come back with a more appropriate answer on that one. But I think good question, and one of the things that people need to think about. So let's move on and let's have a look at the benefits. First of all, I think one of the biggest benefits is that you will indemnify yourself against any liabilities or claims caused by failures of pre-existing non-compliant items, as we discussed earlier. Then you obviously will have the opportunity to upsell by informing the consumer of risks and benefits of correcting the installation. So to me, this is a big one. We all, a lot of people saying, yes, we're just scraping by, we're not making money. But I think this is an opportunity for the plumber to improve, number one, your services, the standing of your business or the reputation of your business, and increase your profitability. You are on site. So while you are there, why not address this issue and see if you can inform the client correctly, number one. And number two, obviously, if you are then employed to do the correction, there you go. I mean, there's a couple of rand extra in the pocket. So you will increase your profitability and you will obviously improve your business's reputation and your standing in the environment that you are working in. So to me, those are the big ones. We've got another question. Yeah. Sorry, Steve.
Just before we jump onto the question, if I take, for example, now, we've all been talking about, rainwater harvesting, et cetera, and Brendan and a lot of us have been talking about that as a particular opportunity. In fact, I think it was one of the items that Brendan had with regards to opportunities for plumbers, going forward, and various things. But if I look at KZN now, I think most of KZN has got no water. They've got no idea how long that is going to last for. They reckon it possibly could be weeks. We can't purchase water at any of the stores because everybody's gone and bought whatever is available. And again, I'm looking at it and saying, one of those opportunities now is obviously rainwater tanks and that story. And now I've got to be honest, I'm one of those that should have done it, but I haven't. But yet last night I had to go down to my son-in-law who did do it, and I had to have a shower there. So again, those opportunities are there, and even in areas that haven't been affected, it's certainly something you don't want to happen anywhere else. But water interruptions are more and more. Infrastructure is certainly failing, and we've been sitting here in Berlin since Sunday night. We've had about 2 hours of electricity, came on yesterday afternoon late, and we've had no water since Sunday. So it's a challenge, but I think an opportunity for plumbers there, just to have that conversation. If you are having about, look what happened in KwaZulu-Natal, it could happen anywhere. And I think, it's one of those things that, if I had a plumbing business, that would be one of my focus points today, is making the consumers aware more and more of harvesting that water, whether it's 2,000 liters or if it's 10,000 liters or whatever. But right now we don't have a liter, you know, so I think go out and have a look at that as well. So again, opportunities are there.
Sure, Steve. And yeah, it's better to be prepared before the time than to run around, as you say, you know, when the crisis hits. Another question that came in from Petrus: is there a non-compliant template available somewhere, or must I make my own? So yes, there is, in terms of the geyser, there's a non-compliance notice. We are finalizing one, also the latest one or the newest one, where you can explain to the owner what the non-compliance means, and that will also be available on the IOPSA website. Furthermore, there will be, in the very near future, there will be a non-compliance notice specifically for solar, a template, as well as heat pumps. However, when it comes to these other non-compliance items, there is no standard template for that. It might be something that we look into, you know, developing as we go. But for the interim, you are welcome. There's no specific form for that. You can use your letterhead, put it in writing, whatever the non-compliance is, refer it to the standard, what paragraph, which paragraph or clause in the standard does it point to, and then give the guy in writing on your own letterhead a notice of non-compliance. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Guys, I see we're running out of time. Steve, I think we're already over time. Is there any last words from you?
Yeah, I think thanks, Kerry, for this morning. And it is a topic, and you know, sorry guys if you think we're bashing the drum, but I just want to reiterate. Last week, I had 3, and I've had another 2 or 3 the week before, where the plumber's been put in an awkward position, you know, with regards to what he's been contracted to do and what hasn't been said. So it's all those things that are unsaid. And when some of the insurances have got like the non-compliance notices, they're saying, well, we're going to not cover the geyser or any subsequent damage. Now the homeowner is phoning the plumber, and the plumber is the guy being caught in the middle. So for me, the whole thing is about communication before you start, making sure, having that conversation, and then obviously getting the client to sign that non-compliance notice. Because as I say, with the one that we have here, is that the client is saying, well, I'm not happy because nobody told me beforehand, and I was not aware of it, and I would have done it. And you do get, as we had one of the guys this morning saying, what about that clever client? You know, so please just make sure that you cover yourself. That's all I have to say. And then it's defendable. And if it's defendable, then it's not a problem. But the challenge comes when there's nothing there, or you've left items like the gentleman that's saying there, make your own one. So we have had that where the plumber makes his own sort of non-compliance notice, maybe leaves out a few things. The audit is conducted, and then it's found that those items have now been picked up, and then it puts the plumber in the bad light. So I think the key thing is going back to the detail. The devil's in the detail.
100%. Thanks you, Steve. Guys, I think that's it from us. If there are any other questions, please send your questions through. We will answer them as we go. And Steve, maybe just a suggestion is, going forward somewhere in the next couple of weeks, we can once again have a Q&A session specifically for some of the questions that might come up. That might be something that we can look at.
Yeah, I think also, you know, the one that I looked on after Brendan said was taking a case study. So we've got a couple of those, Kerry, where we can maybe take 2 or 3, show what the plumber denoted, how the procedure was, and what the outcomes were, and what could have been done. So we can possibly schedule that in May, if that's okay with you.
Good, 100%. Guys,
Thank you,
yes,
everybody.
That's it from me. Thank you very much for being available this morning to, and hopefully we've shared some information that will help and support you going forward. From my side, thank you very much for joining us. And if you do go away for the Easter weekend, please travel safe, come back safely, enjoy the weekend, and have a good rest. And then we'll see each other next week again. Steve, any last words from you?
No, Kerry, just concur with what you're saying. Travel safe. If you're coming down to KZN, just look out for the roads. Go and make sure that you look for the road sort of closures and where you can get to. It is very challenging here at the moment.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your support.